All right. Welcome to another episode of Millennial Money Matters with Kelly Turner.
And Derek Mazzarella. And
Adam Clemens.
We have a guest today. It's Adam Clemens. Adam, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Want to tell everybody what you do?
What I do. Wow.
Where you work?
How long is this podcast?
Not long enough.
I own a real estate company, family owned and operated, Century 21 Clemens Group. And I've been a licensed broker for going on almost 25 years now.
25 years. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah. I got licensed when I was like 6.
Okay. Perfect. I love it. I'm here for that. Well, welcome. We are here today to talk about selling your home. But kind of before we get started, the first caveat for today is I sound awful. If you didn't notice in the last episode, I was missing. I was homesick and I left Derek to his own devices.
yeah, I know. I was strangling on a raft out in the ocean, but I think I was able to paddle my way back.
Even though you're not the funny one.
Not the funny one. Yeah, we found this out that I was not the funny one, which I'm very upset about.
I'm apparently the comedic relief.
We might change that today.
We might change that.
I think we could both be funny. I think that's a doable thing.
All right.
There's a dynamic there.
Yeah.
You two probably don't see it, but as a viewer, I see.
Yeah.
You do. You got that. You got that.
Yeah.
Well, Derek is always the one with like the facts. He's like, I have questions. I have charts, and I'm like, I don't even know what a chart is. Welcome to like more. I'm like,
Well,
what?
I made a whole Excel thing last episode, and Kelly was like, "What? I just ChatGPT in my car."
On the way here, actually, maybe in the parking lot. I don't even know that was on the way here. I think it was like in the parking lot. I'm like, oh, Derek told me what today's episode is. I should probably get on that. That is the difference, though, between like a type A and type B person. I'm type B. You are not.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we heard you have fun weekend plans. You want to tell us a little bit about what's going on this weekend with you?
Okay, so for those of you who are from Central Connecticut, my daughter turned 9 this week, the big 9, and she wanted to have her birthday for the second year in a row at Roll.
Wow.
Roll, blast from the past. So those of you who don't know what Roll is a local roller skating rink in Vernon, Connecticut that has been around since my childhood. I don't even know when it opened.
It was around in the early 90s in my childhood for sure.
All I ever did was drive around that. I've never been in there. We just drove past it, and I assumed it was like condemned.
No.
For years. It's still active.
It is still active. However, the nostalgia, when you walk in, it is the same carpet. You like walk through the doors and it smells the same. It looks the same. The roller skates are the exact same. They're those brown with the orange laces. Yep. You know, Adam's been there.
Big thing for me though, as a hockey player, we brought our own rollerblades. So we were, we had our hockey
inline skates.
We had the inline skates, the hockey jackets.
Were you skating backwards to impress the ladies back then?
All the things.
Watch this.
All the things. Yep.
Yeah. So my daughter falls for that. She's 9, and that is she falls for that. So she would be like, "Hey."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing that.
Yeah. It's that's what I will be doing this weekend, which is delightful for those of you who have a December birthday or have a kid with a December birthday. It is the worst. The absolute worst, because you're like, hi, everybody. I know that you have plenty to do. You have plenty of gifts to purchase, but I would like you to spend 3 hours on one of the last 2 Saturdays before Christmas at Roll.
That's an ask.
Enjoy. And Roll, you can't just drop your kid off at. That's the other thing for it. It's not a drop-off birthday because like most of these kids can't actually roller skate. So like these parents have to come and they have to stay because they have to like monitor their children. So like it's terrible.
At the risk of sounding just whatever, but you guys know me personally. Is there a bar?
No.
God help.
No, there's not.
Is there just a cigarette bar? Because that's what they did back in the day.
Yeah. It smells a little bit
Marlboro
like
Reds.
that.
That tracks.
Yeah.
There's still a cigarette machine
Stale
in the vestibule.
popcorn, some like pizza that's been like in the rotating case for 4 days. A hot dog on the roller. No.
Ooh.
It is a delight.
Well, bless your heart.
Honestly, there's so few places like that for kids at this point that are not bouncy places, that are not like the jump places.
They're all jump inflatable places.
Yeah, that you like have to kind of appreciate it, that like it's something different. I also like, let's be honest, I'm like an overstimulated person. So like the jumpy places are my worst nightmare ever. I hate them. So I will take Roll over that. But like, there's just not a lot of places anymore to like have kids' birthdays. We used to have it at McDonald's. Like, remember you had your McDonald's birthday?
We used to go to people's houses.
Yeah, I don't want it at my house.
We used to do people's houses, and there definitely used to be the party room at the Burger King or the McDonald's, and everybody got their prizes. And
in Glastonbury, we're going to go way back. The Glastonbury McDonald's had a party room, and there was a talking tree. and the birthday kid got to sit on the root of the tree as their like chair, and it was like a big thing. Ooh. Yeah, it was a big thing. The tree was like an animatronic, and it said "Happy Birthday" to you. It was awesome. Now, like if I said to my kids, "Do you want to have your birthday at McDonald's?" They'd be like, "Ugh, can I have sushi?" Like it's just so different.
So different.
So different. Yeah, bougie. Speaking of bougie, let's talk about the bougie people selling their houses.
Yeah. They're not all bougie, but
well, your people.
Yeah, I deal with some bougie people, and I mean that affectionately.
Well, you're bougie.
Yeah, I am bougie. Yeah, I definitely am bougie. You didn't even hesitate on that one.
No, that's why we're friends.
I dressed it down today.
I didn't. I wore my pink Vineyard Vines for you.
I
have
know.
my Vineyard Vines. Look at all the Vineyard Vines in the water bottle, like just for you.
I mean, it's expensive stuff.
It's
just toned down.
It's just toned down.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I wear pink and rhinestone jeans, so
I love it.
You know how I roll.
Very Kelly.
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about buying homes on the podcast,
sure.
Right? Like how to buy a home, what steps can a buyer take, but we haven't really touched upon like selling homes yet. And so, Derek and I had been kind of talking about, especially in this market, there's a lot of, I don't want to say myth, but like thoughts that people have like, oh, homes sell themselves. It's so easy. You don't even need a realtor anymore to sell a home. You just list it and somebody will buy it. And I know on my end, working with buyers, that is not as simple as people think it is. And we also sometimes see the mistakes that people make. I have talked on the podcast before about like for sale by owner and transactions with no agents are the nightmare. That's what keeps me up at night is when I have transactions with no agents, because then I'm the agent and I'm not licensed to do that, friends. That's not what I get paid for. So it's very difficult. So tell us a little bit about, maybe like what's the number one mistake you see people make when they're trying to sell their house, both with an agent and without an agent?
Yeah, I mean, overpricing is probably the obvious one. Everyone thinks their house is worth more than it probably is, some more so than others. But the other two in today's market, where there's very limited inventory, which we're still experiencing in all of Greater Hartford, is that they don't have to go the extra length. They don't have to get their house as ready as you would in a more normal market, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. It's like, oh well, everybody wants a house right now. There's no houses available. So just put it on the market. I don't need to clean up. I don't need to do anything. Just price it as high as you can and just get it ready.
Yeah. And I hear a lot from people like, well, we're just going to throw it on for this number. And if it doesn't sell, we'll take it off. And people don't realize this.
Testing the market.
Yes.
No, that's a terrible idea. For many reasons, but in its simplest form, testing the market really, the market's always going to tell you what your house is worth. Something's only worth what somebody's willing to pay for it. That's kind of a general, obvious thing across the board. But the problem with testing the market is the first 7 to 10 days of being on market are crucial. That's when you're making your first impression. That's when you're going to get the most eyeballs on your property. So you really need to be strategic in your pricing strategy. And we can dive further into that after, but yeah, testing the market's never really a good idea, to say, hey, listen, let's try it at this number. And then, in 2 weeks, if it doesn't work, we'll drop our price. There's several factors there. One is, days on market. Now in today's market, more than ever, people look at days on market and it's a major red flag. Mm-hmm. Even if it's not, there's nothing wrong with the house. It's what's wrong with the house.
You're going to think that no matter what.
No matter what. So that gets tricky, but I think overpricing's probably always historically been the main kind of thing that people overestimate.
Yeah, I have a lot of conversations with clients because, I'm a lot of times working with buyers, right? But a lot of buyers are sellers. And sometimes I'll be sort of engaging with them before they've really had the full contemplation of putting their house in the market. Mm-hmm. And they will have the conversation with me like, oh, well, I bought the house 5 years ago for $500,000. I put a new bathroom in it. I redid the hardwood floors. I put a roof on it. I put new windows in it. And all of that cost X amount. So we're going to say 500 plus 150 plus my neighbor's house sold for 800 plus, and they like have this make-believe math, and then they're like, so my house is worth X, and I'm like, so that's not actually how houses get priced.
No, and in today's market, so I'm sure people are familiar with, if you price a house well, odds are you have a good chance of getting higher than asking. And every higher comp is pushing the values higher to a degree. The problem becomes is, well, my neighbor's house down the street sold for $800,000, so my house is worth at least that. And it's like, well, let's take apples and oranges and let's look at what that house offers versus what yours offers, and let's even the playing field. So you're looking at everything from square footage, number of baths, finished basement, no finished basement, pool, no pool, acreage, and then the improvements that they have or have not made. And you're comparing apples and oranges to level the playing field. And then and only then can you figure out what a house is worth. So in some cases, their house is worth more than what the neighbor's house sold for. And in many cases, it's worth less, maybe within a few, percentage points. But that's always a harsh reality to bring to somebody. I mean, it's my job, but it's always,
that's what you get paid for.
Yeah, it's what we get paid for. And it's something I take great pride in. It's like, I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm here to give you the truth. And the only way, especially if they have to move, whether it's a job relocation, downsizing, whatever the case may be, you need to go into it with, factual information, not emotional information.
Yeah. And I think the other piece to that too is the emotional piece that people don't realize how, and this is really like sometimes the for sale by owner trap, is how strongly you feel about your home and the pride that you have in your home. And to you, that equates to dollars.
Yeah. And you need to take pride out of negotiations because it's really all about strategy and finding a common ground that makes sense for both sides. When you could misread an email or a text, which I deal with all day long, we'll get an email back from another side. My client sees it and they're like, how dare they? And I'm like, well, that's not necessarily what they mean. Like, let's break it down. Let's look at what they said and let me have a conversation with the other agent to see what exactly they're saying. When you take the realtor out of that component and it's direct to a seller, well, things can blow up pretty quickly. I've seen it. I mean, it's, and there are people out there, by the way, other realtors are probably going to hate me for this, but there are certain people that have had great success with a for sale by owner, especially in a market like the one we're in today, where it's a seller's market. But I think what people don't appreciate until they're in a transaction is just how much back and forth and how many variables and components there are to a real estate transaction.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is the knowledge. You can be in a seller's market, but that doesn't mean you understand what makes up a good buyer.
Right.
And that's what I see a lot on my side is, part of your job is to help explain offers to your sellers, right? Like, what's the difference between offer A and offer B? Maybe the price looks to be the same. Maybe they're both buying the house for $800,000, but what are the rest of the variables in that contract?
Right.
How does that protect the seller versus the buyer? What sort of contingencies are there? What are the places where these contingencies can trip you up? Like, what does all of that mean? And there's a lot of sellers that don't necessarily understand those nuances and then get themselves in trouble with not understanding.
I would say most don't. And beyond that, and you've seen it working with me and us working together, is relationships matter too.
Oh yeah.
So, there have been many situations where we get, let's say 10 or 12 offers and one of them is an outlier. It's, $50,000 over, call it 10% over, the other offers. And it's like the seller's just like drooling at that offer. And you're like, yeah, but it's garbage. There's either terrible financing with a terrible lender. Yes, those exist. Kelly's not one of them. Caveat. But, where the number looks good, but the terms are terrible. So, you may go with a lower number, but better terms. So when we're training our agents at my firm, it's always price, terms, and conditions. It's those three components combined to create the best offer for you to accept, and on the buying side, the best offer to present.
Well, speaking of that, can you expand a little bit on terms and conditions and what you're looking for, what you're not looking for?
Yeah. So, and I'm just visually, if I'm looking up into the sky, looking at a contract. So, there's the offer price, the purchase price. Out of that, there's a total down payment, and then there's the amount they're financing if it's not a cash transaction. Most transactions are financed. Out of the amount you're putting down, there's a deposit associated with the deal. So when you start talking about terms and conditions, you're looking at how serious is this buyer on my house? How big is the deposit? Then you're looking at mortgage contingency. So I'm not just looking at how long do they need to get a mortgage. I'm looking as a listing agent as who is their lender. Is it 123 Main Street LLC, or, we give you money,
Yeah.
LLC.biz, like, sure, they're good. I don't know, but I'm looking for lenders I'm familiar with, bigger, larger institutions, things like that, in tight windows. You don't want 2 months for somebody to get a mortgage. That's 2 months you're potentially off the market. A lot can happen in 2 months. Inspection contingencies, there's a lot of myths out there that they're always waived right now. Not always the case. We're seeing more and more of it now that we're starting to correct and the market's starting to normalize. But you're looking at that contingency. How long do they need to do their inspections? How in depth are they going with their inspections? And then, you've got your closing period and everything like that. And then there's Section 9 for other conditions, and you can fit anything you want in there for most part, or you can add a whole nother blank rider and put any other terms and conditions that you want. So there's a lot of components that go into a contract. I think familiarity with the documents and experience is huge with dealing with them. Is big, because then in an advisory capacity, I can really break it down for people.
Yeah. And everybody, people don't realize too, is that there's not one real estate contract.
No.
So there are some more common ones that you will see, like here in Harford County, we see the GAR contract a lot. But there, you can have an attorney just write you up
Sure
a
can.
generic contract from them. Like we see so many different contracts. They're all written a little bit different. Different realtors have their own style on what they put in these contracts. And I think that can make a difference too, is that like, as I'm sure you've seen contracts before as a realtor who looks at contracts all day long where you're like, this is a little weird. Like, that's a little weird.
We were kind of talking earlier about a scenario that I'm in right now, and I can't get into specifics for confidentiality reasons, but it's essentially an off-market sale. So call it a for sale by owner until it hits the market. And the seller came back with the inspection contingency that we proposed. So we did a 10-day full inspection, and they came back with, well, we want it an as-is rider, and I'm fine with that. That still gives my buyer the ability to back out of the contract if there's some insurmountable inspection item. So whether they just simply don't want it because of that item, or whether they want to negotiate based on a repair, whatever the case may be, they're protected. Their deposit's protected. Well, then there was this other language in there that said for informational purposes only. And legally, if I put that into the contract, that takes their ability to get their deposit back away. So I said no, and I explained it to my client. And again, I'm acting in an advisory capacity in this case. They were like, oh, wow, like that seems like such innocent language. And it is by itself. But once you put that into the contract, well, now you wave bye-bye to your deposit if for some reason the deal should fall apart due to that contingency. So pretty wild.
And we sometimes see Section 9 is always the wild card. And as a lender, Section 9 is a slippery slope for us. And
sure is.
you know this.
We have to be careful
as a realtor, what you put in Section 9, because there are things that are not allowed for financing that people will try to like put in Section 9. Like, included in the purchase price is all of the furniture. Well, we can't do that in a mortgage.
Right.
That can't be part of it. But we also sometimes see weird stuff. Like I had one where Section 9, essentially the seller put something in Section 9, and it was that they wanted to dig up all of their fruit trees and take them with them. And first off, that doesn't really go in Section 9. So like that was like number one.
We have a document for that.
Yeah, it doesn't really go in Section 9.
Derek looks surprised.
Yeah, you have no idea what people ask for.
It just seems ridiculous.
Yeah, and it doesn't go in Section 9, number one. Number two, I can't see that, right? Because now you're like putting monetary, like
putting a value.
You're putting a value on something that shouldn't have value. So so as a lender, like it's awkward for me that I have to be like, hey, seller's agent, who knows what they're doing, and you're the one licensed. Like this is not correct, and I need you to consult with the seller's attorney on the correct way to do this.
Yeah.
It was like a new agent, and she was great, and she apologized. Was like, I had no idea where to put it. I'm like, cool, that's what your broker's for. Can you talk to them next time you like go off script here?
Yeah.
But we do sometimes see like wackadoodle stuff, and I think about like sellers again who don't have an agent who are navigating this, and then what happens when the lender comes back, right? There's no agents who's like, hi, about that contract that you guys think that you have.
Yeah.
you don't. And here's the reasons
It's
why.
that whole you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like when we're doing agent training, like one of the topics of discussion is for sale by owners. We call them FSBOs, the acronym. It also stands for fastest source of business opportunity, because a lot of times, if it's not going so well, they might be more inclined to use a realtor. Whatever their hesitation was in the first place, that might now be foregone conclusion because it's not going so well. And we have this like inflated package. It's not inflated, I shouldn't say that. It's all the documents that we have at our disposal to use in the sale of a home. And we don't necessarily use all of them in every transaction, but we present those to people, and it's just like their just heads explode. And they're just like, oh my God. And that's a perfect example, because even besides something like that seems off the wall, like fruit trees, and I've had some pretty interesting things excluded. But let's say, as an example, more practically speaking, you've got something like an heirloom chandelier. Those exist. I don't have one, but they exist. Maybe it was a wedding gift from your grandparents to your parents that they passed down to you. Well, once it's attached to your home, that is now real property as opposed to personal property. So it is implied, unless otherwise stated, that it is conveying with the house. So you need to exclude it prior to a purchase contract, or it's staying and your heirloom is gone. And once somebody thinks they have something that they're no longer, you're trying to pull back on that, well, now the implied value of it skyrockets, and, could tank a deal, or it could cost you money to keep something that you otherwise could have avoided by simply excluding it from the deal. So,
do you, as we now talk about listings, do you recommend people remove things like that before they ever take photos, go to market, anything like that?
Yes, that's a great question, because I can think of an example on Randy Lane. It's so weird I remember that, because it was many, many years ago. I was a buyer's agent showing a house, and it had this, you walk into the foyer, and in the dining room was a stunning chandelier. And it was one of the first things you saw, and my client just had a reaction to it. And as we're going through the house, they liked the rest of the house. It was competitive, even though this was many years ago. And lo and behold, right on the exclusion list was a chandelier. It was a wedding gift. So, there was this implied value. And now all of a sudden there was the, well, we want what we can't have sort of mentality. Yeah. So I always say to people, listen, if there's something you're going to be taking, like absolutely going to take it. Like there's no chance of you negotiating it into a deal. Just remove it before we even shoot photos, because you're going to have to replace it with something else anyway. And then in this case too, you also avoid complications where, let's say, I know we're beating it to whatever death, but if you're using a chandelier and you pull down this really elegant one and put up a otherwise basic one, well, if they walk in and they see the photos and everything, and that was the chandelier that they saw the whole time, great. But if you take down the really ornate one, expensive looking one, and put up a relatively inexpensive or cheap looking one, they might then make the case, well, that's not the same, or that's not similar enough. So you avoid a lot of kind of possible, back and forth by just removing that kind of stuff from the start. And that brings us to, and I don't know if we want to segue there, but into like staging and getting a house ready for sale.
Why don't we actually take a little step back before that? Like,
please do.
First step of the process. I think I'm selling my home. All right, you probably want to talk to a realtor if you're not doing this for sale by owner thing. I think we kind of talked about that enough.
Yeah, don't do that.
Obviously, let's not do that. Yeah. So picking a realtor, like what's the first step? What would you be looking for? What are red flags? How do I know like a good realtor?
So my phone number is 866. No.
We'll put your contact information in the show notes. Don't worry.
It's funny. I truly do think, and I deal, having a career as long as I have, I'm very lucky, very grateful. I deal a lot with past clients and sphere of influence people. So direct referral, it's not really a lot off of like Google and stuff.
Yeah.
But if I am dealing with somebody that is not familiar with who I am or doesn't have a level of comfort that I think that they should with me, and I don't mean this from a point of arrogance, I encourage them to interview other agents. Like, just because I'm good at what I do doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to vibe and work well together. Right. And I think that that's really important. Real estate isn't just a big financial transaction, but it's very personal. For whatever your reason for moving is, I mean, it's your home, whether you're buying or selling it. So I definitely think you should interview multiple agents. I think client reviews are really important. I think, that speaks to experience, and experience matters. I mean, we all started somewhere.
Yeah.
But I definitely think look to that. And then you kind of want to compare. So if you've never sold a house, this is a great question, actually. If you've never sold a house, you don't even know what to look for in an agent, right? Like you're like, well, let me just pick the best one out there, and advertising can mislead you.
Or like, hey, my friends so and so used
Yeah.
one, but maybe as a buyer they had a different experience. And
I just had
buying
a-
and selling is a different animal, right?
We
So-
could talk about this all day.
Yeah.
Is this like Joe Rogan podcast? Can we talk?
We don't
for
have
3
3
hours.
hours, no.
Yeah, we don't have 3
That's a
hours.
bummer. I have all day I can talk. Anyway, no, I think it's vital to compare, because the services that brokers offer, forget experience for a second, the services that they simply offer are very different. You know, and it's different for me. It's custom for every property. It's different what I do for one house than I do for another. So I think interviewing multiple agents is good, because you can kind of learn what you should be asking.
Is there a good question you should ask every realtor, or 2 questions you have?
Good questions. I mean, I hate to lean on experience, but I think if you're in a particular area or price point, you may want to just see what that agent's familiarity is with a product similar to yours.
Yeah.
Even if you have a relatively normal traditional colonial or Cape or something like that. I think seeing if they're familiar with the area is big, like a town like Glastonbury, where we're sitting right now. It's a very specialized town. There's really special reasons that people want to live in certain areas and things like that make it so great. So I think getting an agent that's familiar with that is more important than going with a family friend that has no idea what's going on in the town. But I also think that kind of how dialed in they are, not just to the business, but the relationships within that business is very important too. Because in a hyper competitive market, you could have 3 very similar offers, and you may lean into one where you have a preferred lender on the other end, or an agent that gets deals done. And I think that's vital. Like when I'm sitting with somebody and differentiating myself from other agents, that's something I really push hard on, is that, I'm full-time. I've been doing this for this long. I have relationships in the business. It could get to a competitive point where that matters.
Right.
And I think that's big.
Okay, so once you hire the agent, you're like, okay, we're good. Next steps are what?
Next steps are getting the house ready for sale. So obviously in that interview process, just to take like a half a step back, in that interview process, you're typically having each of these agents do an analysis on your home. You're not just interviewing them to say, hey, how are you? What's my home worth? So, once you know what the home's worth and you talk about pricing strategy, which we can come back to, it's what are we going to do to get my house ready for sale? So, I typically start with getting my stager in there. I work with an interior design team, and they go in and they advise my clients. Now, these are houses that are minimally decorated with minimal stuff. I mean, we all have stuff in our houses, but it's for every single transaction. I don't care how perfect your house is. I still want them in there. What they're going to do is they're going to take your house and they're going to depersonalize it. They're going to make it appeal to the masses as best as they can. Once that step's done, it's photography and media, and that, again, could be a whole separate topic of conversation. You always want to have somebody that does professional photography.
Yes.
You do not want an agent that has a really nice camera. I wouldn't go that
Well, I
route.
think the newest iPhone. What are you talking
Or
about?
a cell phone. Oh my God. Because I look at listings all day long, right? In the sense of being a lender is like super weird, because you're like half in,
You're in,
right?
but yeah, I know what you
You're
mean.
like there, but so every time a client sends me an address that I have to price up, I have to look the house up, because I need to
unbelievable what's
see
out there.
if there's solar panels. I need to like see what we're working with here, and the photos blow my mind.
I'll share something funny with you. So when I go for that initial meeting, I bring my iPhone and I'm taking pictures for my market study. They're just for me. So like you could have stuff on your counter, you could have a laundry basket in the corner. I don't care. I explain that to them. But almost every single time, even if they know me, we get halfway through the house and they're like, you're not using these for marketing, right? And I just have to laugh. I mean, I belly laugh. I'm like, God, no, like you shouldn't be hiring me if I use my iPhone to take. They're very capable, but
Yeah.
no, I hire a professional every time. And that's for like, even like an estate sale, completely original 1940s with stains on the ceiling house, sell those too. I get professional photography. You have to put your best foot forward online. It's a digital age. That's where you start. So photography's next. And then once you have that whole package kind of together, then you strategize how you enter the market, and it really snowballs from there.
Yeah, and how you enter the market, if we can touch on that really quick, is that like the day of the week you put your house on, the week of the month, people don't realize like that strategy is not just, oh, it's ready. let's list it. Like it can be so much deeper than that.
It can be. One of the strategies, it's pretty basic, but that we saw a lot of was you do a coming soon. And you do that Monday, Tuesday at the latest, and go active going into the weekend. And the thought process there was people work during the day, so you'll get more bodies across the threshold on a weekend. So you'd ramp up and build demand going into the weekend, have showings end to end all weekend long, and ideally hope for an offer and be off by midweek the next week. It doesn't necessarily happen for every house, but that's generally a good strategy. And timing of the year is big too. Like we're in a tricky time right now. I don't know when this comes out, but like we've got Christmas in a couple of weeks, then New Year's right thereafter. So I've got a client getting ready to buy a house, and we're going to be under contract hopefully this weekend. And it's like, well, should we put our house on the market now? And it's like, no, people are not necessarily focused on buying a house. Some are, and they're very serious, but I want to appeal to as many people as possible in those first 7 to 10 days. So we're going to wait till right after Christmas and really try to squeak it in before the new year, which I think will work. It's in a market where I think it'll be fine. But.
So I know it's kind of a tight market now, but let's say it's not a tight market. And are there any extra strategies or anything you try and do differently when it's a looser market for the sellers?
Not really. I mean, a lot of people have this misconception that selling a house is easier today. And it might just be faster, but it's still the same complexities that we have dealt with before, with the exception of people waiving inspections and waiving mortgage contingencies. And I mean, that just makes it really clean.
Yeah.
Less steps involved.
From your side.
But yeah.
Not from mine.
No, actually, it makes Kelly work more frantically.
It's much more stressful.
I can't even imagine. Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
Actually, I never thought about that.
Yeah, it's worse for me, but it's better for you.
I got to spend a day in the life with you and Bob someday. I don't know. Maybe I'll switch industries.
You'll cry.
Yeah, probably. I cry every day anyway. No, just kidding. But no, there's obvious differences between, a seller's market, a buyer's market, and kind of just a steady Eddie market.
Yeah.
But none glaring. I mean, I think the importance of hiring a realtor to sell your literally most expensive and most significant asset that you own. I figured I'd use a keyword for your line of work. Assets.
Nice. Notice he said not investment. He said asset.
Asset,
yeah, it is. And I think it's key when you're doing that I would just think it would be obvious that you'd want to use a professional to help you sell that.
Well, I mean, it's such a big dollar amount, especially now. Like we're not talking about $100,000 houses anymore or $50,000 houses. Like you like not buying, getting a photographer professional is like, what are you saving there? A few $100?
Yeah, it depends. Yeah,
1,000 maybe, but we're talking $800,000 assets, $500,000 assets. Like spend $1,000,
and it would blow your mind. I mean, I could have a whole separate series on just like what were you thinking scenarios, whether it's $100,000. And I always break it down for people. So, something I didn't mention, but it's worth mentioning is, I do list and sell everything. Like so, all price points, all sizes, all over the state. Actually, it's something unique, but I have a heavy focus in luxury. So it's funny because when I step into a situation where maybe I'm helping a client's child buy their first house or something like that, and it's a lower price point, which to your point, it's right. There's no $100,000 anymore, really. But I'm putting the same effort and everything into that, both marketing and in terms of negotiation and things like that. And it's funny how many people will try to like skip beats for, they'll say, oh, well, it's only a condo. And it's like, it's money, and when you're negotiating, it's really funny, like, oh, well, it's only $10,000. And I'm like, well, if I put $10,000 in cash on the table in front of you, would you have the same opinion? And they're just like, no, not when you put it like that. I'm like, so let's work on this.
Yeah. Let's
be a little more strategic with this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, from the standpoint of how your house shows is, you touched in the beginning about sort of that time on market, and people don't realize that the vast majority of somebody's viewing of your home before they make an offer is online.
It's all online.
So they're going to go in this market. They may, what's the max? People are going into a house before they make an offer twice, maybe.
People going into a house more than once before they make an offer?
Yeah.
Twice is a luxury right now.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So you've got like one shot. So you have poured over those photos online. You have Google mapped it. You have driven past it. You have, screenshot it on your cell phone and made it bigger and,
Yeah.
like really examine this
Yeah.
house digitally. And people don't put enough stock into that. And they don't realize that what is being shown on the internet. And even the as we talked about at the beginning of the testing the market, way back in the day when your marketing was in the newspaper, nobody knew the history of the pricing.
Nothing.
Nobody knew that it was on the market 3 months ago. It was just the picture in the newspaper, and the person who was ready to see the house at that moment saw it and they made the offer. It's not the same where you're like, oh, well, that house was on the market 4 months ago and they dropped the price 6 times and never sold. And now they've put it back on the market for the original price, and it's been on the market for 18 days. Like what the average consumer is sort of speculating based on these is so much information. And so if you're not strategic about that information, you've blown the deal up before you've ever made it.
Consumers in general have never had as much information as they have now. And I've watched that grow because I went from the analog real estate market into the digital age. So I've seen that evolution. It's pretty wild. Let me give you a little sneak peek going down that. I'm gonna scary, but let's dive into my brain for a minute on when I'm listing a house for sale. We won't go down any other paths.
just the house.
Yeah, we could get dark fast. So when I'm strategizing with somebody on staging their house and getting ready for photos, it's not just the practical debulking, taking appliances off the counters and stuff like that. I want that to be clean and open and furniture to be moved and debulked for the obvious sake of it looks better in photographs. But it gets so detailed as to don't have an empty or half roll of toilet paper on the dispenser in your house or the roll, whatever you have there, have a full one and things like that. It's also about not just what they see, but less distraction as well. So when we're talking about touch-up paints and things like that, for nicks on the wall from kids or water stains from a leak that happened 20 years ago that you repaired, yes, people leave those. It's about removing distractions while also making the house look great. So we get really deep into the weeds on detail. And for the most part, we don't get a lot of hesitation from people on staging. But I think people think like on the $1 million listing and selling, Orange County kind of mindset, like, oh, staging means I'm going to remove everything of yours that's in your house and I'm going to spend $100,000 and refurnish your home. That's not what it means. It could be as simple as a 1-hour consultation with my designers to tell you how to rearrange your furniture and what to remove from certain rooms of the house to I think we should paint the entire interior. I think you should invest $7,000 to update the 2001, deep oranges and deep burgundies out of your house. Let's go with something lighter and more modern. Let's go with some millennial gray. Let's get that in there.
Perfect for Millennial Money Matters.
Well, that's why I threw that in
We
there
love
too.
the gray.
Yeah, but anyway, there's a lot of detail that goes into the strategy, and I think that's also speaks to, when you're interviewing an agent, how detailed are they? Is their strategy to do a market analysis, listen to you on what your house is worth and price it? I mean, ultimately the seller determines,
Right.
But just do whatever you want, take photos, put it on and just hope it sells. I mean, sure, that strategy could work in a seller's market, but are you necessarily netting the highest dollar? It's not a strategy I would use.
Well, I'm a firm believer that the little things are the big things.
I agree.
That's
yeah.
the things you notice.
Yeah.
So I've got a cover more random question. This is me. I guess we're all done here.
I'm dying here. Sorry.
With the market, because you've been 25 years, so you've seen up and down markets.
Oh yeah.
What goes first typically? Luxury homes, or you see like the kind of more quote unquote like common rank and file homes? Like what typically hits first?
Yeah. So I mentioned before I sell all over and I do a lot of unique. So I also do a lot of shoreline. So those tend to be, in some cases, primary residence for people, but also second homes for folks. So I think like second homes and things like that will probably would get hit first just because, people still need bricks and mortar and roofs over their heads,
Right.
but maybe they don't need a lake house or a beach house. But you'll typically see, what's the diplomatic way to put this? You'll see the lower valued markets get impacted first, but on the luxury side too, a lot of people think that just because people have money, that they're adverse to the impacts of the economy. And I guess I'm preaching to the choir as I'm saying it. I can see you looking at me like, where are you going with this? But that's not necessarily true. It's more geographic than anything. And then it works its way from lower up to higher price points, I think, in my experience.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Curious. You right over there?
Yeah, again from the beginning of this, I'm getting over being sick, and you know when you like have like a cough, but
I'm just great that we're locked in a room together.
Yeah. Sorry.
45 minutes. There
Listen, it's been we're like on 2 weeks of this, guys. So hopefully it's not contagious anymore, or you're both getting it. But you know when you like have to cough and you like feel like you're gonna die, that's where I'm at right now. So
all right. Well, let me ask you another question while you're trying to recover over here.
Beat
It's all right.
red
Derek's
on
used to
video.
doing this by himself.
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, it's fine. You're great at this.
All right. So let's say you go kind of down the line with a realtor, and you're like, this is not working out. How do you get out of it?
You don't. No.
You don't.
I mean, you don't if you have a contract. If you're not under contract, I mean, I can't imagine being in a scenario, and I'm not just saying this, like where I've been working on somebody's behalf, and it's oftentimes not the realtor's fault the house isn't selling, right?
Yeah.
It's either the market or the house itself or something. It could be a conglomeration of things. But I mean, if you're really just, it has never happened to me, thankfully, knock on wood, where somebody's so dissatisfied they don't want to work with you anymore. I mean, you really have to have a come to Jesus moment as a realtor. Like, do I want to tie this person up? For 60 more days of the listing. I mean, what do you have to gain from that? So I suppose if there was a violation or a breach of your contract, your listing agreement, I suppose you could get out of a contract that way. That's a legal question, though.
Yeah,
That's,
but otherwise you're basically waiting out because you have a 60-day window. Is that what you're saying? To like get out of this contract?
Oh, no. I do.
No, you're stuck. Okay.
I do 6 month listings.
6 months.
Minimum.
Okay.
Minimum. And that's all back to, the money I invest up front personally. I'm paying for staging. I'm paying for marketing. It's not hundreds of dollars. It's thousands of dollars. So I was laughing when you're like,
I saw that. I saw you're like, whoa.
Couple $100. I'm like, oof. I'm like, not for the reels I'm putting out there.
You're like, that would be great.
Yeah.
It would be awesome. But so I'm invested both money, time, and time to me is time that I'm spending on one deal is time that I'm not spending elsewhere in my business.
Right.
Whether it's getting new business or, whatever. And it's family time too.
Yeah.
So time is money. So, you have to look at all of that. But I mean, if there's a real break in a relationship, then certainly I understand that. But yeah, I know people are always like, well, I don't want to do it for 6 months. Like that seems like a long time. And in this market, you could probably get it done in 90 days. But that varies. It's all negotiable. The price, the commission, the buyer brokerage rate of what you're paying, the time for the listing, it's all negotiable.
Yeah. For that days on market, and that's what I was going to ask before I started dying over here.
Wow, we're really jumping around here,
We're
Cal.
really jumping around.
Yeah,
I want to go back. I want to go back.
Smooth process.
I know. I want to go back to days on market though. So I think, you mentioned in the beginning kind of the like stigma that can come to a house with days on market. And I just had that actually happen with clients of mine that were going to make an offer. And it was a house that had been here in Glastonbury on the market for 42 days. Oh. Which like that in Glastonbury, and they're like, what is wrong with this house? Mm-hmm. And I knew the listing agent. I reached out to them and there was nothing wrong with the house. It just wasn't, the seller was not interested in investing a lot up front. So it was not showing great. But it was one of those things that like the money that they lost by not investing the money up front is far more by this house now sitting when had they put in a little bit of money, a little bit of time, a little bit of energy up front. I don't think people realize how imperative that days on market is right now more than ever. Like, is that really what you're seeing? That I, in my opinion, like in Glastonbury, if I see a house more than 7 days, not under contract, I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
I think people's expectations based on both headlines and conversations they've had, whether on, in the DMs or in person or whatever the case may be, is that a house should sell in a matter of days.
Yeah.
And for a long time they were. That's happening less and less now. If you asked me pre this pandemic market that we're in, I don't have a fancier name for it, but pre the last 4 years, and you told me I'd have 15 offers and I'd sell for 20% over asking with no inspections, cash, like I'd think you were nuts. I'd be like, that sounds great. So the fact that it's sustained as long as it has is pretty amazing. But as I mentioned before, like the market's correcting. There's no blow up here. Like the the numbers are not inflated. People are willing to pay. Houses are appraising for these values. So the market's strong. There's just nothing to buy. That's why it's as volatile, if you will, as it is. But going back to days on market, yeah, that's it's always been something that we've had to discuss with people. You know, oh, it's been on for 30 days, even in a normal market. And they're like, well, why hasn't it sold yet? It's like, you know, you're looking at them like, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know why it hasn't sold. Now, some cases it could be the fact that it's a antique home. You know, that's a niche set of buyers. That's not the masses. So those might take a little longer to sell. The larger a home is, you know, both financially, how much it costs is a smaller pool of buyers. But beyond that, how big it is. Who needs 10,000 square feet? There's people out there that need it, but it's not a large number of people. So days on market can impact it. But I think it's worth asking the listing agent, like, have you had deals blow up because of inspections? Like, is there a stigma attached to the house? Is there like an Indian burial ground under it that we're unaware of? Normally you can ascertain a lot of the information from the disclosures, but I always have conversations with people. Hey, looks like a great house from the photos online. You know, I looked at the satellite image. I don't see anything like industrial around it. No high tension power lines. Why hasn't this sold? Like, what can you share with me? And you have a conversation. But going back to something you said about making updates to a house, that still is part of staging. I didn't want to make this whole conversation about staging, but it's a big component of getting a house ready. That's something I like to discuss with people is, you know, where is your money best spent? And a lot of people want to get started with that process before they ever invite me into the house because they don't want me to see it in its raw form, if you will. Yeah. And I say, no, I'm like, get me in now and I will go over with you what I think is a good investment versus what isn't. So like painting, for example, is a great investment. There's a high return on that investment back. You'll get probably more than 100% of that money back in perceived value. It modernizes it. It makes it look better in photos. You get more bodies in, and it's just more attractive. It's fresh. It's new. Whereas, you know, redoing your patio might not make the most sense, you know, unless it's a big safety thing or something like that. So I like to break that down with folks and say, listen, this is where I would spend your money. This is where I wouldn't. Better ROI. If they're not willing to do any of that, well, then we need to go back to our pricing strategy. So that number I gave you before, we're going to knock that back by, you know, if it's a $10,000 investment into it, it might lower your price by 20, 25. It may even eliminate buyers altogether who will just see it and say, I don't want a project that big.
Right.
You know, I don't want to do all that.
Well, I know we're kind of running along on time here. Are there any final tips, things that sellers should be aware of? Anything else we haven't covered today that you want to discuss?
I'm a big proponent of hiring a broker, or at least speaking with one.
Yeah.
I think it's really important. I think, especially for first-time buyers or first-time sellers, I think it's imperative that you at least talk to somebody before you ultimately try to go out on your own to do it. But I think really be not emotional, but be strategic with the questions that you ask and kind of the criteria that you set forth for hiring somebody, and trust your gut. You know, go with somebody. Don't necessarily go with the family friend, your third cousin's brother. You know, go with somebody who knows what they're doing.
Right. Okay, great. Well, Adam, how do we find you?
You can find me on social, Adam_Clemens, or at my website, adamclemens.com.
Awesome. And we will put Adam's contact information in the show notes if you guys want to check it out. And we really appreciate you coming in, and hopefully people have learned a little bit about selling their houses.
I hope so.
And maybe
Feel
you
free
guys
to reach
can
out. Yeah.
Sell those houses so my buyers can buy them. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be great. Give us more listings, please.
We need them.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.